Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 373 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. There's always a week. It's almost inaugural at this point. And it's in every single sport. But there's always a week where, if you look at the college ranks, a bunch of top-ranked teams lose. If you look at the NFL, a bunch of teams that shouldn't lose ultimately lose. That's kind of where you get the saying any given Sunday or any given Saturday, because every single year there's always a week like that where multiple top-ranked teams or multiple top-ranked NFL teams ultimately lose. Week 6 was the week for that in the NFL. And we had a couple of losses that obviously shouldn't have happened. We had the Eagles lose to the Jets. We had the 49ers lose to the Browns. And we're going to talk about it. But the one that to me is a little more concerning than the rest, obviously, is the Eagles losing to the Jets. And I'm not saying concerning. I don't think that the Eagles are going to fall off a cliff. I don't think the Eagles have fallen off a cliff. I think that it was just one game. I'm not saying the Eagles are trash. It's just one game. But this one game is a microcosm of issues that I think issues that I've had with this Eagles team this year. Let's not get it confused here, man. I've been on this podcast several times saying how I was wrong about Jalen Hurts and how Jalen Hurts has obviously exceeded my expectations as a starting quarterback. But what I've seen this year is slightly a regression of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has not looked anything like he's looked last year. Now, a lot of people want to attribute that to not having having a new offensive coordinator. And I know that it's very hard to say, well, the Eagles don't look that good and they're 5-1, but they haven't. And they haven't looked good on either side of the ball consistently. Again, and another thing, obviously, is they do have a much harder schedule this year than they did last year. So I'm not going to sit out here and say that the season's over. I'm not going to come out here and say that, Jalen Hurts is I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is, when you look, it just seems like there is a disconnect. They're trying to. LaShawn McCoy says something on The Herd, Colin Cowherd's show, which, if you listen to it, it sounds dumb. And I'm not calling LaShawn McCoy dumb. Don't hear me say that. But if you listen to the quote, it sounds dumb, but it makes perfect sense. The Philadelphia Eagles is a team that knows their identity, but still trying to find it. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, what the hell are you talking about? How do you know your identity but still trying to find it? I'll say it like this. The Eagles know what their strengths are. The Eagles know what their weaknesses are. They know what got them to a Super Bowl a year ago. Smash mouth defense, smash mouth running the ball. Jalen Hurts I'm not going to call him a game manager, but Jalen Hurts being great both on the ground and through the air. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. You have Dallas Goedert. Now you have DeAndre Swift. This team is built to be aggressive on the ground. And this team, as we know, they're 5-1 at this point. This team can beat you on beat you just being more physical than you. But as we look and we see losses like what we saw on Sunday, losing to the Jets, it feels like this team is trying to get to what it did last year is just not. It's not working to the consistent level that it needs to. And don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not saying that this Eagles team is trash. I'm not saying this Eagles team isn't good. But what I'm saying is, even in those 5 wins that they haven't looked dominant. They haven't looked like the dominant Eagles that we saw last year. Now, again, I also understand, and I even said this coming into the season, the Eagles have the hardest schedule in football. The issue that I do have, though, is, and it's not even an issue as much as it is a observation, is the Eagles. If you look at the Eagles schedule, it is about to rev up to the point where you're about to go through a gauntlet. So it is good that you're going into it 5-1. The easiest part of the Eagles schedule was the beginning, and now that it is over, now you're going to see what the Eagles, you got the Commanders coming up. You have the Bills. You have the Chiefs. You're about to see some teams. So I'm not going to cast judgment yet until we see what they look like after this gauntlet of teams. But it just feels like this Eagles team isn't exactly on the same page or isn't on the same trajectory as it was a year ago. When we talk about some of the top teams in the NFC, the Eagles are usually the ones forgotten. We talk about, the 49ers, we talk about other teams, but the Eagles are one of those teams that obviously deserve to be talked about, but they really don't. I think it's just because they haven't been as dominant as they were at least a year ago. And again, the last thing I'm going to say on this Eagles team is I'm not throwing them away. And I'm not saying they're trash. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm also not saying that they aren't one of the best teams in the NFL. But what I am saying is they have not played like it. And I would think, especially seeing that the 49ers lost, and this is your opportunity to take the sole possession of the number 1 seed or number 1 spot in the NFC, I would think that you going against a Zach Wilson-led team, that would give you a little bit more motivation, and obviously it didn't. So, and on the Jets side, this was a huge win for the Jets. Sauce Gardner didn't play. You're missing, obviously, Aaron Rodgers. You're missing a couple of other defensive players, key defensive players. And you find a way to win. This to me is a great win for the Jets, now that them being 3-3. But this is also like one of those gut-wrenching wins. And what I mean by gut-wrenching wins is you can see glimpses of how good this team is supposed to be. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We talk about the light at the end of the tunnel for New York fans. We talk about the Giants and we talk about the Jets and how the Jets probably have more hope right now, seeing as though they know that at least next year Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be coming. When I say gut-wrenching win, it has to be tough when you look at a win like this and you see the potential that could be. This is a Super Bowl caliber defense. And this is without Sauce Gardner, who won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. This is a Super Bowl caliber defense with Quentin Williams and C.J. Mosley. It's just the offense can't match because of Zach Wilson. Now, I'm not going to crap on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson played a pretty good game. Breece Hall played a good game. Dalvin Cook played a good game. This offense played a good game. And the only issue, obviously, was scoring. I know they won 20-14, but most of the points came from mostly field goals. So it just sucks because you see the potential, and I'm not trying to crap on this win at all. I'm giving all the credit in the world to the Jets. They played a smash mouth game, and they never quit. They never welted under the pressure, and they won. But it just sucks because you see what could be. This team obviously is a Super Bowl caliber team if they had the quarterback, which they did have for 4 snaps, unfortunately. But congratulations to the Jets for beating the Eagles 20-14. Let's move over to the other game that obviously was one of those games. We've been talking about how great Brock Purdy has been this season. And I even came out last episode and said that Brock Purdy, maybe an episode after last, I don't know. Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in this league. Now, I didn't think I was going to get as much flack as much as I did. But up until Sunday, Brock Purdy hasn't given me a reason to think that he did not deserve to be at least in the top 10 conversation. Brock Purdy plays well beyond his draft position, being the last pick of the draft. And it was just, I just didn't think. We haven't seen Brock Purdy struggle. The one time we saw Brock Purdy struggle as far as to struggle at his position was in the NFC Championship last year, where he tore his shoulder and he couldn't throw. Sunday we saw, I think this was the first time where I saw Brock Purdy not look great the majority of the game. Now, yes, you did lose Deebo Samuels. Yes, you did lose Christian McCaffrey. And I hear a lot of people saying that, Christian McCaffrey and DJ Samuels, they make Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy needs them. Let me tell you something. I don't care who you are. I don't care what quarterback. Think about it. You take Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon away from Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that he falls off the cliff, but he plays much worse. You take Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco away from Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he falls off a cliff, but he plays much worse. You take A.J. Brown and DeAndre Swift away from Jalen Hurts. He plays much worse. What I'm saying is, we're not talking about two bums here. We're not talking about two role players. We're talking about arguably the best running back in the league, and we're talking about a top-tier wide receiver. So, of course, your quarterback is going to play worse when you lose that much firepower on one side of the ball. And on top of that, you're playing against a defense that is very much a Super Bowl caliber defense with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Like that the Cleveland Browns defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. Kind of like the Jets, their offense just hasn't caught up yet. But Brock Purdy did not look great majority of the game. And even with that, they had a chance to win the game. It's just their kicker missed the kick. So I'm not gonna kill Brock Purdy. He didn't look great. This was probably the first game he just looked lost a lot of times, and the throws weren't accurate, and it just didn't look good. And it felt like he kind of succumbed to the pressure at times, succumbed to Cleveland's pressure. But again, at the end of the day, they had a chance to win. It's just their kicker missed a field goal. And I think it was like a 41-yard field goal or something. I'm just saying, this was the first time I've seen Brock Purdy look bad. And it not be because of injury. And this is also the first time that Brock Purdy was without two very key weapons. Majority of the game. Now, again, I'm not. Yes, there's no more unbeatens. Yes, the Eagles lost. Yes, the 49ers lost. I'm not going to just throw them off the cliff. I'm not going to say, oh, they're not championship or championship caliber teams. I'm not going to say that. But like I did say, this is one of those weeks where everybody, or this is one of those unexplained weeks where everyone loses. Or not everyone, but top teams that are supposed to win lose. Mind you, I think PJ Walker played. Deshaun Watson didn't even play. That's another thing we'll talk about. But Deshaun Watson didn't even play. PJ Walker played. You lose to a backup quarterback. And that's another thing. Let's stay on that for a second. When the Cleveland Browns gave Deshaun Watson that record-breaking deal, record-breaking contract, there was an expectation that Deshaun Watson was going to lead them to heights that they have not seen before, and that's obviously, or they haven't seen in a long time, and that's obviously a Super Bowl. But riddled and sprinkled in that obvious contract talks was incentives. And incentives not just for Deshaun Watson, but incentives for the team. And what that means is if Deshaun Watson doesn't hit marks that the team feels he should hit or doesn't play enough games, the contract then gets voided. And all that guaranteed money, I don't know how much would be guaranteed to him, but it wouldn't be all of it. And one thing that we know about sports is a business. We're talking about two different businesses at this point. We're talking about the NFL, and we're talking about the brand of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, they're saying that he's unable to throw because he has some type of rotator cuff issue or deep tissue rotator cuff issue. This is week 2 that he's unable to throw or unable to play. And as we do know with the NFL is they're always looking for their replacement. A team is always looking for your replacement. I don't really have a direction that I'm going with this, obviously, but what I am saying is I'm not saying PJ Walker is obviously going to replace Deshaun Watson. But what I am saying is I do think it was ironic that the week Deshaun Watson is unable to play, they come out and say, hey, yo, there's a clause in his contract saying we don't got to pay cuz. That is, you know what I'm saying? So, congratulations to the Browns for beating the 49ers 19-17. Again, the Browns are the Browns are a good team. It's just they're off, it's all on the quarterback. And it's all on this offense because the defense, we know how good this defense is. We know how good this defense can be, especially with the names that they have. And we know how good the 49ers are. I'm not going to say that it's over. I do need to see what's happening with not DJ Moore. I need to see what's happening with Deebo Samuels and Christian McCaffrey, because if they're not 100%, that does change this 49ers team a lot. So, but we'll see. Let's move forward to what we saw on Monday Night Football. Now, I'm not coming here to... I'll give credit where credit is due. Let me start by saying that. Shouts out to the Dallas Cowboys for beating the Los Angeles Chargers 20-17. Let's start with the positives. Dak Prescott played better. Dak Prescott looked much better than he did just a week ago. And Dallas's defense came to play. Dallas's defense pretty much shut down the Chargers in big moments. They got one sack on Justin Herbert, and that was the key sack in the fourth quarter that forced a 3-10 or 4-10 or something like that. That was it. And I think it was a 3-10. Yeah, it was a 2nd and 2 or something, and they forced an 8-yard sack or something like that. But the one sack that they got was at the end of the game, which then obviously the next play, Justin Herbert throws an interception to Stephon Gilmore. Game over. So the defense came up big, and it played like it was a number one or a top tier caliber defense, like we've said it has been, and that has been the calling card for the Dallas Cowboys this entire year. The defense gets stops, the defense gets turnovers, the defense holds teams to low scores and gets turnovers and gets pick sixes and gets fumbles that ultimately put the Dallas Cowboys offense in great positions. Dak Prescott, again, he played very well. There were times where he overthrew and missed a couple of passes, but he didn't turn the ball over, I don't believe, and it just looked good. He looked good, even though CeeDee Lamb looked, I think, 7 catches for 117 yards. I'm hooked up on the fact that it was 7 catches, but he still had 117 yards, and he looked great, especially after the conversation this week talking about, is CeeDee Lamb a number one receiver or not? Well, he looked good. So, shouts out to that. But that's kind of where the positives stop. You see, you can look at the stats, you can look at the numbers, you can see the fact that Dallas won as a positive, and there are positives there, obviously. But nothing about this game changed how I felt or how I feel about the Dallas. In fact, a lot of this game, I didn't like from both teams. Now I will hone in on the Chargers in a second, but let me just get the Cowboys out the way. The questions and the concerns and the issues that I've had with this Dallas Cowboys team are the same issues that reared its head this game. Dallas struggles offensively in the red zone. Well, they struggled in the red zone again. While, yes, they did score, they did struggle when they get in the red zone. Dak Prescott misses a lot of passes. While he did complete a lot and he did ultimately win, he overthrew a couple passes. No one in like specifically was actually at the end of the game where he could have sealed the deal for sure, and Tony Pollard was wide open and he overthrew him and wide open for a touchdown. Overthrew him. And when you have pieces like a Tony Pollard, like a CeeDee Lamb, like a Brandon Cooks, I would expect more out of this offense. This offense is predicated on how good the defense plays. It's not really a balance there. If the defense plays pretty bad, this offense, in my opinion, has not shown the ability to carry the load this season at least. And that's kind of what we saw on Monday. I'm not crapping on the Dallas Cowboys. And trust me, the vitriol and the venom that the Chargers deserve to have, they will get in a second. But there's not a concern. The only thing that I've changed my mind about is CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, is good enough to be a number one receiver. It's just the Dallas Cowboys don't use him as a number one receiver. Again, having 117 yards is great, but I don't know a number one receiver, a number one receiver with a good quarterback finishing a game with seven catches, 7 targets. Let me say that, 7 targets. I don't know a one. Now, you can say, well, what about Devontae Adams and Jimmy G? Well, Jimmy G's not that good. So, a lot of the concerns and a lot of the issues that I've had with Dallas wasn't. I will say this, actually. One thing that you have to figure out is, we talk about measuring stick games, and they obviously lost against the 49ers, looked terrible. This was another measuring stick game. This was a very important game for both teams, and Dallas played much better than the Chargers, and they ultimately won, but they stepped up to the plate. So I will say that. I will give them credit in saying that the Dallas Cowboys knew this was a very important game. You have Kellen Moore, who you let go. He's coming back with another team, obviously. This is a statement game. You got embarrassed against the 49ers. I think it was on Sunday Night Football. It's imperative that you look good against this Chargers team, and you ultimately did, and you ultimately won. So I will give them credit with that. But all the other concerns, I still have. And congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys for beating the Chargers 20-17. Now we get to the Chargers. The Chargers sit here today at 2-3, below 500. You have a top-tier wide receiver in Keenan Allen. You have a top-tier running back in Austin Eckler. You have top-tier names on the defense: Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James. I've said this multiple times, but what we've seen this year makes it reign even more supreme. That the LA Chargers is the definition of a on-paper team. You realize I didn't say anything about Justin Herbert. I have a lot of people. I did a real short, whatever you want to call it, about the Chargers. And a lot of people are killing me because I said that Justin Herbert has not done anything in this league. With the talent that he has not done anything in this league. And people are killing me. Well, Jay, Justin Herbert continues to rack up all these yards. He continues to rack up comeback wins. He is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. Hey, Jay, the offensive line is not that good, and you see what he's able to work with. You see he's able to do anything, and I don't understand how you can say he doesn't do anything or he hasn't done anything in this league when he continues to rack up regular season wins. Jalen, I just don't see how you can say that Justin Herbert hasn't done anything. This is all clearly Brandon Staley's fault. What I will say is this. Brandon Staley has proven that he is not the best coach. I'm not going to say a good coach. I'm not going to disrespect him like that. He's not the best coach. He continues to put his team in tough situations. Clock management is horrible. I believe he leans too much on analytics and not literally what he's looking at. Some of the play calling is like, why are you within the 10-yard line and you do 2 runouts? Like, what sense does that make? So we know about Brandon Staley. We know that Brandon Staley is definitely a hindrance to this LA Chargers team. There's a lot of issues with this team. Brandon Staley being one of them. Their defense being god-awful. Now, you can blame that on injury and people coming back, but the defense has been terrible. We're going to talk about the college ranks in a second, or a little later in the show, and we're going to talk about Oregon and Washington, and I'm going to talk about how Dan Lanning was the main reason why they lost this game, but I understand his thinking. I understand Brandon Staley's thinking when he does some of the things that he does, but you have to understand there's always a positive and a negative to every situation. There's always a cause and effect. And what it seems like is Brandon Staley never really thinks that his team can be on the negative side of his causes. But more times than not, it doesn't work out. I've been calling, and pretty much Chargers Nation has been calling for Brandon Staley's job for a while now. I don't think that this game ultimately is the nail in the coffin, but this was a big game for both teams. You have one of the top tier NFC teams coming into your house. You have an opportunity, obviously, to go to go above 300, to go above 500. This is a game to show up, and the Chargers, especially defensively, didn't. Now let me get to Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert. He went to University of Oregon. That's my school. Let me backtrack. I didn't go to University of Oregon. I like their football team because of their jerseys. But I watched Justin Herbert a lot in Oregon, and I like Justin Herbert. I like Justin Herbert because he has the talent to be a top-tier quarterback. I've said this on numerous occasions. He has the talent to be in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. When you look at talent, I don't see much of a gap talent-wise. I don't, and potential. Let me say that. Talent and potential. I don't see much of a gap between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. I see there is a gap, but not much of one. But you get to games like Monday. Games like Monday is why it's almost blasphemous to put Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in the same sentence. It's almost blasphemous to say that Justin Herbert. You know what it is? At some point, we have to stop talking about Justin Herbert and his potential. We have to stop talking about Justin Herbert as a top tier quarterback because of just his talent alone. The talent has to show somewhere. It has to show in the wins and loss column. Justin Herbert threw a game-ending interception on Monday. You can say, well, Jalen, he had a broken finger on his non-throwing hand. That didn't stop. I mean, Keenan Allen had a good game. He had a good game if you look at the numbers. But outside of the first drive, he didn't score again until the fourth quarter? They didn't score again until the third quarter, and it was a field goal. They didn't score a touchdown again until the fourth quarter. Where's all that talent? What is all that talent doing? What does all that talent have to show? Like, what is the stat that shows me how talented Justin Herbert is? All these passing yards, all these touchdowns. Where's the wins and losses? And I'm not saying, yes, Justin Herbert is obviously better than Russell Wilson right now. But we kill Russell Wilson because we said that Russell Wilson, at least this year, hasn't been the problem, but he also hasn't been the solution. The same exact thing can be said for Justin Herbert right now. Justin Herbert has been nowhere close to the problem for this Chargers team, but he hasn't been the solution either. Every single time they've went up against a top-tier team, they've lost this year. They lost to the Dolphins. They lost to the Cowboys. And the Cowboys without Trayvon Diggs. Let's not forget that. At some point, we have to be honest about what we're seeing. And what we're seeing is an incredible, exceptional quarterback that has nothing to his name but a bunch of passing yards. And a roster that is a top-tier roster. While, no, they haven't played like it, it's still a top-tier roster that is now sitting at 2-3. But hey, if you talk to anyone in my comments, Justin Herbert is the greatest quarterback ever. Justin Herbert is the third best. I've heard that. So the third best quarterback in the league. Okay. Talent-wise, maybe. But at some point, we have to talk more about what's being put on the field, what's being put on the tape, instead of potential. She can be the greatest woman ever. She can have the potential to be the greatest wife ever. If she wants to argue all the time and can't cook, what are we talking about? If she doesn't make your life easier, but she has the potential to do something, what are we talking about? Justin Herbert has the potential to be a great quarterback. He has the skill set to be a great quarterback. It has not produced wins. At some point, we can't keep talking about potential. That's all I'm saying. Let's move forward. Speaking of potential, Jesus, talk about the transitions. The game on Sunday is one of the biggest reasons why I hesitate to call the Buffalo Bills a Super Bowl caliber team. Now you can look at it and say they beat the Giants 14-9. And obviously, at the end of the day, you got to win. But let's not get it twisted here. The reason why I predicted that the Bills were going to kill the Giants was because of a couple things. Going into it, the Giants were arguably one of the worst teams in football. While they have big names on the defensive side of the ball, their defense has been horrible. They're going in. They were 1-4. They have not been good. And you're coming off Josh Allen playing well against, or Josh Allen playing well. You have Stephon Diggs playing well. They beat the Dolphins. I thought this would be the game that the Giants just guys. Not to mention, Daniel Jones didn't play. Tyrod Taylor was playing, who, for people that don't know, is a former Buffalo Bill. I just thought this was the game. This was the game that the Bills were going to steamroll the Giants. But what happened in this game? The Bills didn't play well at all. The Giants, Tyrod Taylor, neither one of these teams played well. And this game showed the single worst clock management I have ever seen in my life. When we talk about the New York Giants, I think before the end of the second or the first half was probably the worst example of clock management I have seen in my 29 years of life from an NFL football team. You know what's funny too? If it wasn't for poor officiating towards the end of the game, the Giants would have won this game. I know it's very tough to call a pass interference twice in a row on the same person to end the game, but the last play of the game was definitely a pass interference. Man was yanking his jersey down. It was pass interference. Now, Tyrod Taylor could have thrown a better ball, but it was a pass interference. But this is why, again, I have a tough time calling the Buffalo Bills a championship caliber team. It's because they have duds like this. Now, yes, they ultimately won, but if they played a much better team, they would have lost. They made this Giants team look like, or at least this Giants defense looked like the best defense ever. Yeah. They won, though, so I will give them that. So shouts out to the Bills for beating the Giants 14-9. There was a conversation. I was on First Take, I believe. Talking about who is the most skilled non-quarterback or who is the most important non-quarterback in the league. And you heard that question obviously is subjective, but there's a lot of great important pieces to a team that's not a quarterback. Like, even though they clown Dan Orlowski, Jason Kelce is integral to the success of this Philadelphia Eagles team, especially if Lane Johnson's going to miss some time. Travis Kelce is incredibly important to the Kansas City Chiefs and their ability to operate, especially when they're trying to figure out who's going to be their number one receiver. You can say someone like Derrick Henry. We'll talk about the Ravens and Titans game in a second, but Derrick Henry, if there was no Derrick Henry, that Titans team might be damn near as bad as they might not have a win. You can talk about Aaron Donald or Michael Parsons, T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt is so integral for the Steelers. But I think if there was any year that a wide receiver was to win the MVP, it would have to be this year. Tyreek Hill is on pace to be the first wide receiver in NFL history to eclipse 2,000 yards in one season. When you look at Tua's numbers, with and without Tyreek Hill, and you look at just the success of this Dolphins team with and without Tyreek Hill, it is stark. Tyreek Hill is undoubtedly right now the best wide receiver in football. And I agree. I think Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp said it. I agree that Tyreek Hill is the most important non-quarterback to a team. Now that doesn't take away from how important Christian McCaffrey is, or Derrick Henry, or someone like a Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. But let's not get it twisted, man. Tua is good, but he's not as good without Tyreek Hill. That the numbers obviously prove it. And we're talking about a player, like I just said, that is about, if he continues the trajectory that he's on for the season, he is going to eclipse 2,000 yards. 2,000. You know how hard it is for a wide receiver to get 2,000? I would tell you how hard it is. It's never happened. And a lot of people saw the Kansas City Chiefs win a Super Bowl last year and kind of minimize the importance of Tyreek Hill. The conversation was Tyreek Hill obviously isn't that important because the Kansas City Chiefs just won a Super Bowl, and they won a Super Bowl obviously without Tyreek Hill. And sometimes I look at moves like this and moves like Tyreek Hill leaving the Kansas City Chiefs. I look at it like you ever done that science project where you talk about how fast or compared to how slow sound moves with distance? So something can explode, let's say down the street from your house. Let's say 3 miles from your house, something explodes. Obviously, people that are a mile away hears it faster than the people that are 3 miles away. Wow, I think Kansas City Chiefs are going to be okay, and I think they're still good. But you're seeing now the ripple effects and the sound and the impact finally hit the Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill not being there. You know what it is? I was talking about wife, right? You ever had a great significant other, right? You ever had a girlfriend or a boyfriend or, whoever you whatever, you know what I'm saying? You ever had a great significant other that you may have messed up with, or they may have messed up and ultimately broke up? And you think you're good, like, damn, back in the streets. And for the first couple months, you're probably all right. You're not really thinking about it. You're doing your thing. You're living life like it's golden. You're probably just doing your thing, not thinking about them at all. And then once it hits. It's like, especially if they were a good significant other, just it's like, damn, I'm feeling it now. Now I miss them a little bit more. Now I might need, I'm thinking about what they're doing a lot more. You don't really get that unless you lose something very good and integral in your life. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs, and don't get me wrong, Kansas City Chiefs, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Tyreek Hill. They have Travis Kelce, they have Andy Reid, they have Chris Jones. They were doing it for a couple months, and it was a high couple months. You win the Super Bowl. But now, when it's time to, okay, now we got to reinvent some things. Now you're missing that old thing. Now you're damn, I'm seeing Tyreek Hill about to put up 2K, and I'm over here struggling with Kadarius Toney. I agree with First Take and Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith. I think Tyreek Hill is the most important player to a team outside of the quarterback position, because it's very easy to say if Christian McCaffrey isn't on the 49ers that they're not a Super Bowl caliber team. You can say that, but you don't know. You can say if you take Travis Kelce off the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not a Super Bowl caliber team. Yeah, that's very true. You can say if you take Justin Jefferson off the Vikings, they're obviously not as good. That's very true. But the drastic difference between how this Dolphins team looks with and without Tyreek Hill is clear cut and obvious. And I didn't even talk about the game, man. They beat the Carolina Panthers 42-21. The Carolina Panthers, at this rate, they're going to lose every game. I'm sure they're going to win a game. Trust me, I'm sure they're going to win one. But they have been god awful. Then this is yet another stint where Frank Reich isn't playing well. I mean, isn't coaching well. And I understand, like I said, you played better against the Dolphins, but you still lost by 21 points. So, yeah, it's tough, man. It is tough. It's tough. Let's move forward. I don't really need to sit and talk about this Seahawks Bengals game as much. The Bengals won 17-13. What I will say is it looks like he is back. It looks like Joe Burrow is back. And that changes the entire dynamic of the AFC at this point. And not just that. Not just Joe Burrow being back, because Joe Burrow being at 100%, there's still a ceiling for this Cincinnati Bengals team. As we got to the Super Bowl, it's just their defense and their offensive line couldn't hold up. Well, this is one of those rare years where their defense is their calling card. Their defense is which is crazy to think that how explosive their offense is. Their defense has been the best unit for this team. And if that continues, it doesn't matter how poor this offensive line is. This team is good enough to not only win the NFC North, but to make some noise and ultimately win the Super Bowl. Because we have never seen, it's always been Joe Burrow and the wide receiver cores, the specialty positions, and everyone else is just a question mark. Like their offensive line's been terrible. Their defense wasn't that good. Well, that is not the case anymore. They have their pass rush is one of the best pass rushes in football. And that is scary when you have now a team that's getting Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow's getting back to 100%. That's a scary sight. Along with now having a defense that can close games for you. So, shouts out to the Cincinnati Bengals for beating the Seahawks 17-13. So, let me first say that the Baltimore Ravens beat the Tennessee Titans 24-16. Ryan Tannehill, I think that that's another thing. Hold on. I felt myself getting excited. Give me a second. That's another thing. I put out a clip about the Tennessee Titans before the season. And I said that the Tennessee Titans will not be good this season because of Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is not a starting quarterback at this point of his career. Let me say this. He is a starting quarterback. He's not a quarterback that can lead you to anywhere. He is a middle of the road to below average quarterback at best. And people killed me. The Tennessee Titans fan base killed me. Telling me I'm all types of this and that and how wrong I am and I shouldn't talk about sports. Well, as we look here today, what has Ryan Tannehill done for you? You have DeAndre Hopkins. What has he done this year to justify him being a top tier quarterback, which y'all were telling me he was? Look, I'm not saying I'm a guru. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that everything I say is correct. Obviously, everything that I say is my opinion. I'm not saying it's correct, and I'm also not saying that I could be wrong. And I think that if you've watched me or listened to me enough to know, I will come on here and say that I'm wrong. But it's numbers. Oh God! And it goes back to the Justin Herbert thing. Numbers tell much more of a story than. Well, let me say this: numbers don't tell as much of a story as watching the games. And as you can see, Ryan Tannehill has not been good. Now they are saying that Ryan Tannehill possibly or probably is going to miss several games with an ankle injury. So I hope for a speedy recovery. And Malik Willis, he is not really good at all. But come on now. Like, I understand you want to ride or die for your fan base. I understand you want to ride and die for your team. Like, you don't understand how many Steelers fans come to me talking about how wrong I am. That I said Kenny Pickett and this offense was trash. Yet and still the whole damn near the entire fan base wants to fire Matt Canada. Like, what are we talking about? Ryan Tannehill has not been good. Damn, I just felt like I needed to get that off my chest, man. It's just like, come on now. Again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But nigga, we're seeing this man be bad. Like, think about it. You saw such a drastic comparison between Lamar Jackson and Ryan Tannehill. And we're going to talk about Todd Monken in a second, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. And don't get me wrong, Lamar Jackson didn't have his best game, but he looked drastically better than Ryan Tannehill did. And the Tennessee Titans defense played well. That's the thing about it. Oh man, I just feel like I had to get that off my chest because they've been coming at me, man. They've been coming at me. Let me talk to Todd Monken for a second. There's a reason why people are saying that this Ravens offense looks eerily similar to Greg Roman's offense a year ago. That's not good. Todd Monken was brought in to kind of unlock that or break down that wall that Lamar Jackson, this offense, has hit. Because it feels like there is a wall. It feels like there is a ceiling that this team has hit. It kind of feels like the Golden State Warriors when they had Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is a great coach. Mark Jackson obviously was the person that constructed and built the Golden State Warriors that we remember as Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. That's when they had, Festus Ezeli and Mo Cheeks and stuff like that. Not Mo Cheeks, Mo Spates. That team obviously was really good. But it felt like year after year, they continued to hit a bump. They continued to hit a ceiling that when you look at the potential of the players, that ceiling should have been much higher than it was. Losing to the Spurs in the second round, losing to the Clippers in the playoffs. Like the team is that you construct. Obviously, the talent is better than a second round exit or a first round exit, but it just seems like you can't get past that wall, that ceiling, until you get a Steve Kerr, what unlocks the offense. And then now you look here, 2023, Golden State Warriors has 4 championships in 8 years, 9 years. Todd Monken was thought to be that person, that Steve Kerr for this team. Because Greg Roman got them there, but Todd Monken was supposed to get them over the top. Well, as we sit here today, they don't look much different than that team, because it just seems like, especially when we get to the red zone, it seems like they don't trust Lamar Jackson's ability to pass the ball in the red zone. Like, don't get me wrong, man. We can talk about those drops. Now, those drops against, I don't remember who. Oh, against the Steelers were crazy. But I don't know how many times. It just feels like the Ravens' offense is scripted once you get to the red zone. Pass, 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 pass. I mean, no, run, 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 run. Which I get it. That's kind of been the calling card for the Ravens. But like we've said before, there's a ceiling there. And you can only go so far, man. Lamar Jackson has been playing great. Unleash the offense on the red zone, man. Because the Ravens was funny, man. The Ravens are one of the best teams in getting to the red zone, but they're one of the worst teams as far as scoring in the red zone, because they're very predictable in the red zone. They're gonna run the ball. Woo. But hey, they beat the Titans, so there's that. Hey, man, shout out to the Washington Commanders for handing Desmond Ridder his first home loss since middle school. The Commanders won 24-16. Sam Howell, his connection with Terry McLaurin is getting better week after week. His connection with Curtis Samuels is getting better week after week. This is probably one of the first games where they couldn't really rely on the run game. Brian Robinson didn't look that good. Neither did Antonio Gibson. It was mostly Sam Howell and the defense. I'm going to look at it more because of who they played, but the defense finally woke up for, even though that they ultimately won by 8 points. Desmond Ridder threw 3 interceptions. I said this. Desmond Ridder is not the option. We're gonna see very early if Desmond Ridder is the future for this Atlanta Hawks or Atlanta Falcons team, and he obviously is not. And I know this sounds terrible to say, man. But I'm gonna say it. There's like a bittersweet feeling, man. It's a bittersweet feeling watching the Washington Commanders win because I know that it just prolongs Ron Rivera. And I don't like calling for people's job, but kind of like we just talked about with Todd Monken, man. It just feels like there is a wall that every single team hits with Ron Rivera as their coach, and I feel like we've hit it. And Jack Del Rio as the defensive coordinator. And we have statistically one of the worst defenses in football. When we have Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen and Chase Young. Like, what are we doing? But hey, shouts out to the Washington Commanders. 3-3, baby. HTTC. Whew. So, the Vikings beat the Bears, and the conversation out of this is it looks like Justin Fields has a broken hand or a broken hand or thumb or something like that. Whew. Both of these teams just need to blow it up, man. And when I say blow it up, I mean complete, especially for the Bears, a complete just. They need to strip it down to the bare bones, coaching staff, team, players. Just get rid of it all. Like, start over. Because I know Washington, I know that win against Washington kind of allowed people to forget how bad this Bears team is. The Vikings didn't have Justin Jefferson, who a lot of people, including myself, consider one of, if not the best wide receiver in football. And they lost. The Bears made this Vikings defense look good. You know how bad? Didn't they have a scoop and score for 6? Like, you know how bad this defense is? And you lost. Like, yeah. Shouts out to the Minnesota Vikings for beating the Bears. I say this week after week, man. C.J. Stroud is one of the best rookies we've seen, one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've seen in a while. It's even when he looks bad, he has the best poise, I think, out of a rookie quarterback we've seen since, I don't know, man. The Texans beat the Saints 20-13, and a lot of it was because of C.J. Stroud, man. C.J. Stroud is a great quarterback. He outplayed Derek Carr. Yeah. I will say that the Saints got a lot of issues, man, that they got to figure out, because this team is much better than a 3-3. Like, roster-wise, this team is much better than 3-3. But the Houston Texans, nobody thought they would be 3-3. And that, to me, they were projected, I think, to win like 4 games this year. And we're 6 weeks in, and they're already at 500. So, hey, man, shouts out to them. I know Puka Nacua, because people were killing me about that. Puka Nacua has been great. But I do think that C.J. Stroud is running away with the rookie offensive rookie of the year, especially with Cooper Kupp coming or being back. So, shouts out to the Houston Texans for beating the New Orleans Saints 20-13. Also, we need to sit on this for a second. So the Jaguars beat the Colts 37-20. And there's also, I didn't really talk about it, but there's also a week in every NFL season where you see a abundance of injuries in 1 week. And this was the week. We saw Trevor Lawrence. We saw Christian McCaffrey. We saw Deebo Samuels. We saw a bunch of players get hurt. And the report coming out of Indianapolis is saying, now Gardner Minshew played because Anthony Richardson had a shoulder injury. And the report came out after the game that it's looking like Anthony Richardson's probably going to miss the rest of the season because he has to have shoulder surgery. And that is a devastating blow for the Indianapolis Colts. And honestly, that's a devastating blow for the progression of Anthony Richardson. The most important seasons, in my opinion, for a rookie is their first two. Because the first one, you're wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. You don't know anything from anything. You're just learning how to be a professional. The second year, that's when you're really locked in. You know what you're good at. Or you may not know what you're good at, but you know what you can lean on, and that's what you're starting to do. Well, Anthony Richardson is pretty much missing the entire rest of the season. And for a quarterback that is a raw prospect and has flashes that looks like he can be a top-tier quarterback in this league, to miss his pretty much the entire rookie year with injury for his shoulder as a quarterback is not good. And I know Trevor Lawrence had a knee injury, and I hope that he has a speedy recovery, but this ain't basketball. Basketball, we see multiple people miss pretty much their rookie season. They're fine. I mean, Blake Griffin missed his rookie season. He was fine. Zion Williamson, I think, pretty much missed his rookie season. He was fine. Football is different than basketball. And I hope for a speedy recovery, but this is a huge blow for the Indianapolis Colts. And you want to know something? Which is discouraging to say, but honestly true. You want to know how you know you're a backup? And you want to know how you can tell about a backup? I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. And we were talking about Ryan Tannehill. Not Ryan Tannehill. We were talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. And we were talking about the cycle for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And how that cycle fools people all the time. Ryan Fitzpatrick was always a bona fide backup quarterback. And you know how you know that? Because a backup quarterback isn't meant to keep the ship afloat for the entire season. They're meant to keep the ship afloat for maybe an entire game or maybe even 2 games. Maybe 3. But that's pretty much it. Gardner Minshew is a backup quarterback. Gardner Minshew is the main reason the Indianapolis Colts lost this game. He threw like 3 interceptions and lost a fumble. Ryan Fitzpatrick would have 3 incredible games. 3 games where he looks like a top-tier quarterback in the league. And those 3 games would get him paid. Then that 4th game comes and he looks awful. And people start saying, well, that's just an outlier because those first 3 games are great. Well, then the rest of the season comes and they're not even in the playoffs. That is people ask why Jacoby Brissett is still a backup quarterback, because he is not good as a starter for the duration of a season. He might be good for a drive. He might be good for a game or 2, but that's why you're a backup. A backup is not meant to keep the ship afloat for the entire season. They're meant to keep the ship afloat for maybe a game or 2. Gardner Minshew is a backup. And I say all that to say one of the biggest reasons why this is a devastating blow, because nobody thought that Gardner Minshew was supposed to be the starting quarterback for the entire season. But then it also goes back to my issue that I have with Anthony Richardson is just like, yo, you have to protect yourself. This ain't college no more, bro. Now, it's easy for me saying this thing as though I've never been in the NFL, but I see with my own eyes the physicality is much different for the NFL than it is for college. This ain't the 2008 Florida Gators anymore. This ain't the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. This ain't that. And those teams were littered with NFL players. You have a man that is massive, that runs as fast as you. So go to take your head off your shoulders. You have to protect yourself. And now you're going to miss the entire season. Possibly. I hope not, but that's what it's looking like. I hope Trevor Lawrence gets healthy. Thank God they have Travis Etienne had the best game of his career. But it's unfortunate, man. But shouts out to the Jaguars for beating the Colts 37-20. Oh, boy. There's not much else I need to... I feel like if I continue to trash and not trash, if I continue to tell the truth about the New England Patriots, it just seems like I'm bashing them at that point. The Raiders beat the Patriots 21-17. The conversation coming out of this game now is a lot of people in the organization, or a lot of people close to the organization for New England, are thinking that this could be Bill Belichick's last year. And while defensively they've been okay, offensively they have not at all. They're terrible. And Robert Kraft has given Bill Belichick the ultimate power to pretty much be the GM and the head coach, and especially talking about the draft. Well, the New England Patriots are set to have a top 3 draft pick. Do you trust Bill Belichick, who drafted I'm not even going to say who has a draft history like him? Do you really trust him to have the 3rd overall pick and get the best out of that 3rd overall pick? Let's not be. You want to know the Bill Belichick effect now? Look at Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, drafted by or undrafted, was signed to the Patriots. Developed him. He became a very, very good wide receiver. They let him go and paid him pretty much the same exact money that he received. They paid that money to Juju Smith-Schuster. And now Juju Smith-Schuster's out with a head injury. And Jacoby Myers is a very integral piece a very important piece to the Raiders. Mac Jones, it's like he looks terrible. He doesn't have any wide receivers. I mean, everyone's talking about the Devontae Parker drop, which was a huge drop, but even still, the very next play, he gets sacked for a safety to end the game. Like, talk about awareness or lack thereof. Rex Ryan said that the New England Patriots suck right now, and I agree with them. I don't know one. I know that they play hard on defense, but I don't know one redeemable unit for this team. And they lost to a Raiders team that also didn't have their starting quarterback in Jimmy G, because he was out, or he left the game with a back injury. Jesus Christ. The New England Patriots, man, boy. I will say shout out to the Detroit Lions beat the Bucs 20-6. I will say shout out to the Bucs for having the absolute best jerseys I've seen in a while. When those creamsicle jerseys, oh boy, those are one of the best jerseys I have seen in a while. We don't, that might be a segment one of these days, like who has the best jerseys or rank the best jerseys in football. I will say that those creamsicle jerseys, those throwback jerseys were incredible, man. Yeah, bro. Them Jones was nice. I'll put them up there with the Cincinnati Bengals, the all white and black jerseys go crazy, man. I like, yeah. But that's the only thing that was good for the Buccaneers on Sunday because they got their butts handed to them against the Detroit Lions. Yo, I can't keep denying it, man. And we as a fan base can't keep not a fan base because they're not my team, but us as football fans can't keep denying the Lions is a Super Bowl caliber team. Imagine saying that. The Lions are all of 5-1. And they deserve that 5-1. There's not a unit that you can look at and think, yeah, that unit's trash, bro. No. We're looking at a Super Bowl caliber team. Now, I'm not going to ultimately say they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I do think that we're looking at a Super Bowl caliber team. I know it's crazy to think about, but we can't keep denying it. And when I say we, I mean me and you. Can't keep denying it, man. This team is good. And they can beat you in so many ways. Jared Goff can beat you. They can beat you with the run game with David Montgomery, even though he went out with an injury. I hope he gets well. But they also have Gibbs. They got Amos St. Brown. He's good. They got Josh Reynolds. They can beat you on the defense. Aiden Hutchinson's great. Like, this is a good team. Dan Campbell's a hell of a coach. This team will have something to say in the playoffs. Plain and simple. They've been great. Shouts out to them. Shouts out to those Bucs jerseys too. I can't. Those Bucs jerseys were great, but that's all that was good. Baker Mayfield was horrible. That's the issue that we have with Baker Mayfield. We know what Baker Mayfield looks like at his best. I mean, he beat the Steelers. They beat the Steelers in the playoffs that one year. But it's the inconsistency. 1 minute he'll look great. The other minute he'll look like he did on Sunday. He looked god awful. Like he was, with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They look bad. But shouts out to the Detroit Lions, man. In the last game I'm going to talk about is the Rams beat the Cardinals 26-9. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really watch this game. I didn't really have much faith in this game. I know that Cooper Kupp didn't look like he missed some time at all, and that's crazy to me. That's crazy good. Shouts out to him. And shouts out to the Rams for beating the Cardinals 26-9. The Cardinals, they do play hard, but you're really about to see the effect of James Conner. In fact, you saw it on Sunday. I did see the highlights of it. They need James Conner. That's what I'm saying. Let's go over to college for a second. And let's talk about the Washington Huskies beating the Oregon Ducks 36-33. Michael Penix Jr. Is the front runner for MVP or Heisman winner, especially with Caleb Williams throwing 3 interceptions and losing to Notre Dame. This game was tailor-made for him to lose. They're down early. Oregon cannot stop their wide receivers, or they could not stop Rome Odunze. Couldn't stop him at all. Also couldn't stop Jalen Polk. Boy, Odunze had 128 yards himself, and Polk had 118 yards. They could not stop these wide receiver cores at all. But Oregon, which kind of everything was confirmed for me. They are the most complete team in the Pac-12. Their defense came alive, and their defense that didn't show up pretty much at all in the first half showed up big time in the second half. They took the lead, and Dan Lanning, I understand being aggressive, and that's what I was talking about when we were talking about Brandon Staley and the Chargers. I understand the aggressiveness. I understand you're at the red. You have the ball. You force a turnover right before the half. I understand going for it for fourth down, because you have not shown the ability to stop these wide receivers. Let's not get it twisted. Rome Odunze is probably the second best wide receiver in football behind Marvin Harrison Jr. You have not been able to show the ability to stop their wide receivers. So you want to go in and you get the ball to start the second half. You want to go in there with as much points as possible. But my thing is, you're at the 1 yard line. Or you're at why are you throwing the ball with a run out? Like, kick the ball. I know you're gonna still be down, but you're down 1 instead of 4. Kick the ball to get for a field goal. And they lost because they missed a field goal. So now I think that Washington is a top 4 team, and they're not. I think they're ranked like 5th right now. And I think Oregon's going to be okay. But Bo Nix had 337 yards. Damn, that hurt, man. That was a good game. That's one of those games where it lived up to the hype. You know, like you see a game and it's just like, it's probably going to be a blowout or something. It lived up to the hype. Shouts out for Michael Penix. He probably the Heisman front runner, and probably we just saw again. We talk about Heisman moments. That probably was his Heisman moment. We talk about Shedeur. Oh boy, Colorado lost to Stanford. You know, and I'm not gonna kill Colorado at all, but I get the want to be how do I say this? I get the confidence, right? But yeah, let's chill out on that because you haven't really done much, you know. But hey, this was that was a good week in a college football, man. Like I said, USC lost to Notre Dame. Pretty much, and a lot of it was because now USC never really plays defense, but Caleb Williams was terrible. Like, that's probably the worst game I think I've ever seen him play. So, but shouts out to college football, man. Now we get to the unpopular topic of the day, and a lot of people liked when I talked about the Drake album. And a lot of people liked when I talked about something other than sports. Now, again, I'm not going to do this every episode, and I'm not going to do that every episode. But if there is a topic that I want to talk about outside of sports, now it's not going to be gossipy. I promise you I'm not talking about the Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith thing. I don't think that I need my opinion to be out in the ether. Like, it doesn't matter what I think at all. And honestly, that's how it is with all things. But I just want to give my opinion about sports. But this is going to be another topic, a non-sports topic. Offset, one of the three Migos, RIP to Takeoff. Offset dropped an album, and I sat here and thought for a second because I listened to it and I like the album. There's some good songs on it, but I feel like after leaving this album and After listening to it maybe once or twice, actually, that's a lie. I listened to it once all the way through, and then after that, I just went back to songs that I liked. We've heard, in fact, it's been more than here. You can see the state of rap. You know, the state of music, well, rap music is down. Like, think about it. The feeling that I had listening to this Offset album, at least after the fact, is the same feeling I've had multiple times listening to music. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I don't think I've had that. I've had that, oh, it's cool feeling more times this year than I think I've had in previous years. Now, I had to go back and remember and think and look up just what albums dropped this year. There's been a lot of them. Like, Magic 2 and 3 dropped this year. Remember that? Glaucoma 2 dropped. From Key Glock. The Pink Tape dropped. Rocket Power, Quavo's album dropped. Sherm Life 4 dropped. Completely forgot about that. Business is Business, Young Thug dropped. NBA Youngboy, I think he dropped twice. Almost Healed, Lil Durk dropped. Now I still listen to that Don Toliver album. That junk go crazy. But what I'm saying is, I think we're starting to really feel, as a consumer, the oversaturation of music in the industry, and the oversaturation and the amount of drops just continue to and not just that, drops with okay to mediocre music. I'm never gonna sit here and disrespect any artist in their work. You know, I'm sure that a lot of people put a lot of time and a lot of they put a lot into their albums. But there's just been Mike Killer Mike dropped, and that came out in June, and that's still probably one of the better rap albums in this year. I just think that there's a lot of issues with rap right now, and I think the biggest one is just the sheer amount that keeps dropping. I think that's one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest issues that I have with the Drake album. Again, for people that didn't really listen to what I said, I thought it's a good album. But in the Drake discography, it's one of his worst. And in the grand scheme of rap, and that's the biggest thing, it didn't stand out to me. A Drake album did not stand out to me this year. I just and I'm not. It just sucks that I don't know. I don't know if it's the 24 to 25 track albums. The fact that almost every Friday there's 5 to 6 rap albums dropping. Like, I just feel like there's an oversaturation of music being out there, and a lot of it sounds the same, and a lot of it is very forgettable. I understand the game that's being played and the marketing that's being played, but a lot of it is unforgettable. And I think that for people, they talk about people's attention spans, right? And they say that, you know, today's consumer, the attention span is lower than ever. But I don't know if that's true, in a sense of, if the music is good, they're going to keep coming back to it. Now, again, music is very subjective, but I still go back to the Mr. Morale album. And if you don't want to go to the big, you know, like, I still listen to Travis Scott album. I just talked about, I still listen to Don Toliver's album. In fact, let me check. Let me go to my phone. Let me see the albums that I still listen to on a daily basis. I still listen to For All the Dogs. I still listen to the Rory album, which is R&B, but if we talk about rap, I still listen to Tyler the Creator. I still listen to West Side Boogie. I still listen to JID. You know, Joey Badass dropped an album last year. Like, I still listen to that. So when they say that, oh, it's, you know, the consumer and stuff, like, no, they're going to listen to what they want to listen to. I just think that people are tired of hearing the same type of rap album and leaving a rap album feeling the same. Like, oh, there was a couple good songs, but at the end of the day, it was just, you know? And that's how I felt about this Offset album. It was good. It had some highs, but it felt like it had a lot of filler. That's my opinion. I'm not trying to trash it. It was good. It was solid, but it just wasn't. It's not an album that I feel I need to go back to. And I've felt that way more times than I haven't this year. And I think that you can see the correlation between the rap sales that are apparently down and just what people want to hear. So we'll see. And there you have it. That has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodies, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link's in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Yo, we're about to hit 1.1K on YouTube, man. That's huge, bro. Seeing as though September 11th is when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and a little over a month, I'm about to be 1.1. So I appreciate everybody. I hope that you continue to subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I can't keep doing this without you guys, and you know, it means a lot. So I appreciate y'all. Also, follow the socials. Follow Instagram. Follow TikTok. I post there daily. And yeah, man, we can communicate. For everyone telling me how trash my takes are, you'll get a response. just keep it respectful. But again, I appreciate you guys. And until next time, much love.